Let's begin there with those unemployment numbers from yesterday.
Yeah, I noticed the fact that you use the term soared, and you're actually right. You know, we're around 5.4% last year, and now we're at 7.5%. Of course, the scary number out there is 10%. Both Treasury and Reserve Bank have been thinking about that's a possibility for us, you know, particularly since Victoria's problem. I think we were really tracking to be under 10%. But the number yesterday I thought was pretty good, Pete, was apart from the fact that employment was up 115,000, the economists only thought 25,000. That's a good number. But the ABS says that without JobKeeper, that 7.5% number would be 8.3. So I'm thinking, well, when we get to March and JobKeeper is taken away, maybe we might end up being under 10%, particularly if a vaccine's turned up and society is going back to more normal type lifestyle where we can fly, albeit maybe around Australia. We can go to a pub and not have to sit 1.5 metres apart, which I don't think enough people are quite frankly doing at the moment. But
they're not.
All those sorts of but those sorts of things, once the vaccine's in, that tells me. And by the way, one last interesting number was Victoria's unemployment actually went down over the month because the lockdown hadn't started. So I haven't got the number right in front of me now, but it went from something like 7.5 down to 6.8%, indicating what can happen when a normal economy comes back. Unfortunately for us in Victoria, there were security guards who had uncontrollable urges, and as a consequence, that normality has been derailed. But that was an interesting number. I thought that Victoria's unemployment actually fell.
Yeah, I mean, that's until there's another lockdown, which they may well be before there's a vaccine. You don't want to think about that kind of stuff, but it's always a possibility. Just onto some of the numbers that are thrown about this week with company reporting week well and truly underway. You had Telstra numbers and Woodside numbers, Commonwealth Bank numbers, all as expected, all pretty bad. Yeah. Why, if Commonwealth Bank's numbers were better than expected, though, why did the share price fall down?
And that's interesting, Pete. I had a quick look at it this morning, and in fact, the share price is up for the week. So there was an expectation that CBA might surprise. The big question was, what was the dividend going to look like? And I know my colleague here at the Switzer Report, Paul Rickard, who was the founding CEO of Comsec, so he's pretty good at working out dividends. He thought 80 cents would be the dividend. It came out 98. Yeah, so that's another reason why there's a bit of positivity around CBA. You know, that was a pretty good result. But what was interesting, Pete, the other banks, their share prices actually went for a nice ride higher on the expectation that CBA's pressure will make them at least either pay their dividend or stop deferring as ANZ and Westpac did.
But what happens then when the other banks have to, report whatever their losses are going to be?
Yeah, well, I think what we're seeing, Pete, is that the losses aren't as bad because in the case of CBA, I think that $100 billion worth of new home lending has occurred, and $27 billion of new business lending has also gone out. And at the same time, there's been an enormous rise of deposits into the banks. So all that government assistance, including the superannuation, I call it the superannuation suck out. When someone draws their money out of super, where would they put it? In the banks. So the banks have been great recipients of all this assistance because it goes to the Australian, but where does the Australian put that money? In the banks. So they've been cushioned to a certain extent. What we have to see, as I said earlier, if a vaccine shows up, all this assistance will be very good for propping up the economy and maybe keeping unemployment under 10%.